Alright, so we're going over the creation of the Volvo 240 rear trailing arm bushing tool. So I have some of the web pages that I used that I found online to make this. I just wish someone, there's a lot of similar sort of kits for BMWs and other things on Amazon, and it kills me that no one just makes this for $100 because in the end we're pretty close to that anyway, just on time and effort. So I originally had gotten the Volvo. These are aftermarket bushings, and on my first attempt with like the long rod kits, it just looked like it was going to be too much pressure for that kit, and then I decided to just ditch. Don't want to ever do these again for my lifetime, so we're going to go with the B&E spherical bushings. Hopefully this will just be a one-time thing for the next 10, 20 years. So what is available today? So from Home Depot, I was able to find these 2-inch couplers. This was not so bad. They're $6 or $7. Most of the Home Depots that I searched in my area had these. I got them at 2 different times because I was going to do it before it got cold this winter here in Baltimore, and then I just decided to wait because my bushings are not so terrible, but in the city roads you can really hear a lot of clatter and it's just annoying. What is not available from any of the guides is anything other than this galvanized version cap. I have looked online, I've looked everywhere. Maybe you want to spend $30 for a single cap, but it just does not seem to exist. And so even though the guides say don't use the galvanized ones, I can't see where anybody stocks or sells these in any other metal version. And if that galvanized metal isn't going to be able to work, then I'm not going to do it. So anyway, for drilling the hole, it's a little tough with these to get it exactly centered. So I cut lines and then drilled through. I had some bits that were, not in great shape, so a quick Harbor Freight, $30 kit. This got right through the metal without any issue. If I just look down the barrel of this, I can tell it's off by a little bit. So we'll see how that goes when we're actually putting pressure on it. I know one of the guides actually said using a impact gun, which I've not seen anybody do online, and I'm going to try that because I've seen people wrench and wrench and wrench, and it seems to take forever. So also, what is not available anywhere, and I just bought online from McMaster, are the long 8-inch bolts with the really fine threads. Everybody, like Home Depot, they seem to stop maybe 5-6 inch for what they had in stock or what you could order. I will say with the McMaster stuff, I was hoping for, this awesome precision. When I thread so by the way, also because of the ordering 50 half-inch nuts, if anybody ever needs one, as I thread it on there, there's a little bit more resistance than I'd like. And I actually bought 2 bolts because I figured if I'm ordering it, I might as well have a backup. Once you get into the middle of the threads, it's a little bit better, and then once they're greased up, it's nice. But man, when you're spending $10 for a bolt and the matching nuts, I was really hoping that it was just going to feel great and without any resistance, as we're going to be really torquing these things down. So as a point of drilling them, so on this one, this is the one that's going to be the pusher. And I already have this chucked up in the drill just with a bolt that I had. So we're going to be spinning this as we're grinding it. It's not completely even there due to the bolt that I had, but in reality we're just going to be sanding this down so that we are lined up with the diameter of that bushing there so that it can push through a little bit. I was thinking about just cutting them off because I saw how much trouble people had with pushing them out, but then I realized that the parking brake line sort of sits there where you couldn't just sawzall straight up into them. Otherwise, that seems like it would be way easier than trying to mess with any of this. But just a point about drilling the holes. So you have threads on this one. These threads are going to go away. So I just put it in this pipe wrench and held it and then drilled into it because I don't have a vise. But even if I had a vise, you're going to be marring up those threads probably. So for the one that is going to stay in the pusher, I threaded this into the pusher and then held it with the pipe. That way those threads were already in there and didn't have to worry about fouling them up. So we're going to go outside in a little bit, and my daughter's going to help me pull this as we run the grinder on there. So from what I understand, it's just spinning this at some speed while also hitting it with the grinder just to get that diameter down. And what you end up in the end, after greasing everything up excessively, this would be the receiver. You're going to have the bushing. Well, let's use the old one because that's what we're pushing out. So this is going to be in the car, so you can see the clearances with the 8-inch bolt. I was also curious. I saw some people with like a whole lot of washers and things on each side. And so, yes, this rim here is sitting outside of the carrier, so it probably will be at about there on the car. And then, well, I got the pusher on here, but you can see, even if we take about 1 millimeter off of there, there's really only about that much threads to start off with. So maybe with one washer. I was thinking it was going to be, a little bit more to get started, but we'll see how it all goes once we get it on there. But yeah, that's going to be the end result there. So just pushing it into this one. And for these ones from Home Depot, these 2-inch couplers, that slides right in there just fine. And we're not really going to be using it as a coupler to push it in, but the B&E ones fit in there also, so that shouldn't be a problem. So more to come once we go outside. Alright, well, no help from the kids, so we're going to try this one-handed and not die. Alright, so we are looking at the bushing area, and I'm going to add some light here as it's kind of dark. Had a crazy storm pop through here. So one of the things I didn't cover in creating the tools is you have to make these little, I guess, retainers that go in between the two ears so that when you're compressing them they don't go together. I just used a cutoff wheel, and as you might be able to see, not exactly straight, but overall, maybe due to somebody replacing these or just the manufacturing being a little off, I am just a little bit too wide, so we're going to have to angle grind a little bit of the edge off of there. I tried to just tap it with a hammer, but it's off maybe 1 millimeter, maybe 2, not a whole lot. But anyway, I also didn't undo the front suspension, the trailing arm front connection, as I'm just going to be able to push that down while we're doing that a little bit. It's not totally in the way once you have the puller in there as well, but we have the grounded off portion. That's going to sit. Should have set up a better light for you guys. How about this? Sprayed everything up with some Deep Creep. I decided to try to use that rather than PB Blaster. And I was actually watching some videos about guys doing brake lines, and they were using a can of duster upside down to freeze the connections to break the rust, and I was thinking that sounds like a nifty idea. And then at Home Depot earlier today, I totally forgot to pick up a can. Anyway, that's going to line up okay, and I actually put a level across, as you might be able to see. This is not totally straight across, but I have, compared to the bushing, if I put a straight edge across it, I have about that far, almost about 3/4 of an inch before I hit the same diameter, and from what I've seen, that's about how far you got to push it in there. So as I get going, if it doesn't release, I might need to go machine this down a little bit more. But now we are going to just grease everything up. This GoPro magnet holder is fantastic. I just have you stuck up on the gas tank right now. So anyway, I really don't want to deal with any thread issues. So I already put this on, and I was able to get 2 washers on both sides. So we're going to get gunky in here. I really want this to have as much slippage as possible. So I've got the 2 washers on there. Like I said earlier, I only want to do this once. I was thinking, not to put a run on Amazon, but I bet you if you just kept ordering the BMW kits or the Toyota kits, you'd probably eventually find one that's the right diameter. Can't imagine that they're all that off. Alright, so we got Super Gunk City there. That'll be cool. I actually want to pack a little bit more behind that. Just make it funky now. Oh yeah, that is disgusting. Alright, then we'll get all the threads here. This is Valvoline multi-vehicle red grease, which I now forget why I picked this up in the first place. But anyway, get that on there. We had a crazy storm come through here earlier, and I was, well, I guess we'll just kind of partially assemble this so I have it all together now. Totally throws off the plans, you know? Try to get things done. There's always something. The Mid-Atlantic. I know everybody has their weather woes, but man, start to realize there's only like 10 good days a year where you walk out of your house and go like, oh man, it's nice. And I know it's probably not the best way to go through life, but man, who doesn't like some nice weather? Alright, gunk this last bolt up here. Oh. This is thick. Oh yeah. So what I think I'm going to do is get this on there with wrenches and sockets. But I am very intrigued. I did set the axle on 2 jack stands, and I realized I'm probably very close to get my hammer, my impact driver in there. It's just the $100 DeWalt one. It's not anything super fancy, but for everybody I've seen wrenching on this thing, and then some of the information online saying it's a good idea to use an impact gun, I used that same impact gun to get the shock nuts off of the top of the tower, and that worked perfectly to get them off and get them back on. So that will be the plan, but delay again. Gonna have to trim these guys up by like 1 millimeter because I do not want to bend these ears. So I'm gonna go check it on the other side, see if they both are about the same width. Alright, and here we go. We're getting the bushing tool set. This actually went pretty straightforward. Didn't have a lot of issues on my 92 and it pushed through there. Unfortunately, due to the camera angle, my head was getting in the way, constantly checking clearances. I will say one thing that I did part way through this one was score a line on the original bushing with a screwdriver so that I could see whether I was making progress or not. That made it a little bit easier. So after getting this all lined up in the normal fashion, just start wrenching it. I didn't use the impact driver because I didn't have the clearance there, and also just noticing that things started to move smoothly, just went ahead with the normal, you know, hand tools. Right here, what I was basically doing is just pinning the ratchet against the axle so that I could just focus on the one side, not have to hold the tension there. That worked pretty well. In between my head getting in the way there, you can see on the left side of the bushing there's that strike line that I added. And that's what I was using just to make sure I was getting forward momentum. It's a pretty easy thing to add and made it a little bit more of a confidence builder as I was pushing things through. You can see it getting a little wider there. And now let's just speed this up even more. This is just a really long and slow process, but yeah, if you have things super greased up, it gets through there. After about 3/4 of an inch of pushing, the bolt finally will, the bushing pops out, and you'll be good to go. Alright, well that went amazingly too well, so what I'm going to do is clean up, put a little deep creep in here as well. I am not certain if it's just not so degraded being a 92, and just the right stuff with the McMaster parts, but man, that was not difficult at all compared to some of the ones that I've seen. So we're going to dive right into the next step. Everything because if it was in there that hard, it should stay. By the way, the deep creep seafoam stuff smells like coconuts to me. It's way better than PV Blaster, which smells like the scene in Batman when the Joker falls in all the acid. B&E, spherical bushing, that's what we're going with. Hopefully this is the only time we have to do this. I'm just going to lightly coat this a little bit, just for the sake of sakes. Let's see how far it goes before we get resistance. Oh wow, it is, oh look at that. It is actually to the, all the way up to the crown of the next one. That's cool. Maybe it's held on with more on the back than on the front for this guy. So what we're going to do is switch around our bolt. All the threads still look absolutely perfect, by the way. And so we're going to go in with the pusher this way, and then if I remember correctly, we have the right amount of space here. It is very close. Doing it blind. Should have taken this guy. Might need to take these washers off. Let's see what we got. Yeah, it's just like right, man, it's right there. I want to have two on there. Let's see if we can get it threaded with one. But, from what I can tell, we are barely pushing this thing through here. There's a few threads there, I don't like that, but I don't think we're also pushing it very far. Let's see what we can get. This is so tough. See if we're in there. I don't think we're going to have enough. Well, you know what? We're going to be locking it from this side, so let's take off that washer. Everybody has said it's so easy. Let's see what we can do. The grease doesn't make it easy.
probably just gonna do a voiceover for all of this.
And here is that voiceover. Yeah, so getting the B&E bushings, I will say with the pusher and puller, the way that I made it, it did feel like I took a little bit more to get it lined up. I was also just trying to be, very accurate, not wanting to mess this up at all. This is kind of my daily driver, and I did not want to foul anything up to the point where I'm getting into a larger project, especially in this sort of inconsistent weather we have, where it's not like you always have a constant day or an evening to get things done. So yeah, once getting this pushed in here, everything started rocking and rolling, pushed in very nicely. I will say on the ear shims that I made on the left side, I had to take off about 1 millimeter, but on the passenger's right side, I did have to take off about 2 to 3 millimeters. I don't know if that was just due to the ears themselves being a little off, or someone else pushing in bushings at some other point. But yeah, there was just a little bit of a mismatch. And I did notice that the passenger side was a little harder to push in, but I also did a little bit more of a lax sanding with the Scotch-Brite pad on the passenger side. So that could have also had something to do with it. And then it's just a matter of getting everything pushed in there, really in the way. Probably would set up some better camera angles, but hey, I'm not going to do this again for 10 or 20 years on these spherical bushings. All right, now that we have the bushings off the car, let's take a little review of how they looked. This was the worst one. And so here's the deal with my car. It was very apparent that someone had replaced just the left side torque arms at one point. They were poly, where the other side was the original style bushings and way worn out. You can see the rubber really just starting to get torn. It just shot in my face. Torn and pushed. But the thing that you can do, I think that I noticed originally, is when it's on the car, you can torque and push these around with a long screwdriver. And so you can get a sense of how much they're going to go one way or the other. It's a little different. My hand, I can't get that same amount of hard holding power. But on the car, I could really yank this around a lot more compared to this one. And you can see this guy, it looks way better in shape than this was on the left and the other one was on the right. And this one is way harder. So, the interesting thing was that I wasn't noticing a massive amount of clacking in the back. What I was noticing was that if I'd go over certain speed humps, no noise. And then, it was sort of when I was hitting a really rough road and the differential was really just sort of back and forth. Here's the one of the original style, just to see for comparison. You can see it has the wider bottom end, which is supposed to face down. But what I realized was causing me noise, which I don't have any videos of, the parking brake lines come back, cross, and then go over to the brakes. And right about in the center of the differential, there is this metal, I can only call it a clip spring. It's like a metal clamp that has a rubber liner, and both of the crossed parking brake cables go through that, and then it's held with tension on a spring that connects to the differential. And that was open like this on my car, and the left side hose had popped out. So that heavy coated hose is what was smacking that differential. So the interesting thing was that I brought it back in together and I zip tied it, and it was held up. I drove for 2 or 3 days and I wasn't hearing any noise, and now it's back. And so I think that might have fallen down, or now it's the bottom of the ring that's hitting. I saw one diagram, if you can see my fingers here. I probably have it now where it's a full circle and then the mount is here. But if I look at some diagrams online, it's almost like it's articulated, I think, up like this. So the connection is here, whereas the cables are held at a higher point and not down here. So I'm going to get a piece of heavy rubber or foam to put underneath of that to see if that's what ended up causing it. So the B&E bushings are in. No longer these guys. You can see how much caked up stuff was on these. They really didn't push out very hard, as you can see from the video. I didn't have a great
angular time in like all projects, I really just like this video alone spanned 2 weeks because I just want to dive in the moments and seconds that I have. And it is hard to sort of set up a whole video with all of the right angles, and perhaps this will not be my my final forte. So, but anyway, things with the B&Es are looking really good. They did push in really easy. It would be interesting. I haven't pushed in any of the original styles, but for the B&E, you can see like here's the inside ridge and here's the wheel side ridge, and the B&Es push in so that this is already, you know, contacting 2 or 3 millimeters into the ridge here. So I think from things I've seen online, these push in and get stopped, kind of hung up like here on the backside bushing. So then you have to push like this amount all the way through. Whereas for the B&E bushings, they go all the way in like to here, and then on this lip, it's really in there already about 2 or 3 millimeters and lined up. So you just have to like put it in about that much. And it really was like not a lot of effort. I could tell on my passenger side things weren't lined up exactly. You know, maybe one of the hangers was off a little tiny bit. But it still pushed in, you know, without any, you know, Herculean amount of strength. I just used a regular box wrench. I did put a towel around it for the second one because it was just taking too long, and I was starting to really wear out my hand. So that little towel around the bottom just to keep working it certainly helped out a lot. So that's what we got for the bushings. I recommend the B&E ones. I didn't realize they're actually in Rockville, Maryland, just south of here. And shipping was fast, quality product, and I look forward to putting some of their other stuff on my car once I get around to it. So that is it for the bushings. Good luck to you.
Thanks to everyone for watching this tremendously long video. For all few hundred of you, subscribe if you want. I got more to come.